Hello, hello. What's up, everybody? This is Mia Hall TV, and you're tuned into another episode of Brown Girls Glow Live. Listen, I'm getting ready to tell you what it was really like going from student to filmmaker in just 4 weeks, right? At the New York Film Academy, I directed 3 short films and worked on almost 10, probably more others. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what it looked like day to day. And listen, if you've been scared or you're not technical enough or you're not ready, this will calm you down if you think that. So at New York Film Academy, in my last video, I talked about how I chose this program. I chose to take a leave from my job, I know, at almost 40 years old. And I decided to go after my dreams. And that's why I'm here today. I'm still standing, y'all. This was 2 years ago, and I'm still here. I have my filmmaking certificate. I have 3 films that I'm able to show people. Well, now even more, but 3 films as a result of New York Film Academy, and I'm still standing and able to share my story. So, So let me tell you a little bit about the program that I took. So it was a full-time 4-week workshop, and we went 5 days a week. And then on the weekends, like I shared in my last video, but we worked on other films. So we worked on basically the 3 weekends, like in between those 4 weeks. Um, we worked on our own 3 films as well as our classmates' films. So we were put in groups of 3, and then we were able to work on 2 other films. So our classmates' films, or sometimes the people even had 4, but we were able to work on our classmates' films and our own, right? So that was, I mean, it was great. We had classes during the week, shoots and screenings also during the week of our shoots. We saw the critiques from our teachers, and of course, we're able to show our peers as well. So then by the end, like I said, we, learned more and more, of course, as we went along, right? So the first film, pretty simple. All of them were mise en scene, so none of them had narrative dialogue, but in all of them, we were focusing pretty much like on a different aspect of it, right? So, the first film, we had a continual shot. The second film, we had something where we had to focus on continuity. And the third film, we did a montage. And so 2 of my films are on my YouTube page. One is on my Vimeo page, but all of them I had a great experience in, actually. And all of them taught me a lot. And like I said, not only working on my films, but on my classmates' films. So one of them was a horror film, and we literally like found the ingredients to make, a product that looked like blood. And we put then the other film, he was my other classmate from, I think he's from like Minnesota, but he did a film, and he had the continual shot, but it was somebody like in an alleyway. It was super cold too. That's the only thing. If you're going to go to school in New York, you could go to the Miami campus. I believe they have classes in Miami, and I believe they have a campus in Los Angeles. If you're going to pick January to go, I would say go in a warmer city because it was freezing cold, and my classmate wanted to shoot his film outside. So anyway, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, at the final screening, we get to, basically that's when we graduate, and that's, when I did the 2-week film. So I was able to shoot a scene with my goddaughter. I was able to shoot the montage. Basically, it was, in a park. This is the true story that I've been working on. Me and my dad have been working on telling our story. We felt like God told us to tell our story since 2006, right? How I went from the hood to Harvard, and how he went from Rikers Island to righteousness. And we've been talking about it. We took a screenwriting class in um, at Gotham Writers Workshop in New York City. So it was on off like Houston in the Village. And, we went there for like, I don't even know how many weeks, but we probably went at least 6 weeks. We had an awesome professor, but he helped us like work on our idea and just learn more about screenwriting. Like that was like my first screenwriting class and really being able to get into it. So we've been working on that. Then, if any of you have been following me for a little while, we started a podcast, Parables from the Projects podcast in 2019. I started it June 19th, 2019, because I said, we are talking about this so much. We used to have like weekly meetings, weekly calls. And I'm like, because I was in LA, I was in Los Angeles at the time, and I was in Los Angeles from the end of 2017 to 2021. And we used to talk so much. I'm like, we talk so much, we need to start a podcast. Like, and it turned out, that I also wanted to hear us like talk out the stories, right? So all of them now live on Apple Podcasts that I'm still paying to fund, but they live on Apple Podcasts, they live on Spotify, so anybody can hear the stories and prayerfully, this can maybe there'll be um we are looking for investors to invest in our full length feature film or series. We would love for it to be a series too, but we think that it's going to be a film first, and then if we want to turn it into a series, it can be a series because there's so many stories, so many miracles that has happened to my dad and myself that we really want to tell in this story. So anyhow, I was able to, and I was able to show that, and my dad was able to come, my mom was able to come, my friend Sonia, shout out to Sonia, she was able to come, and I had another friend come as well. And so I was thankful for, just my community. You're able to invite people to the final screening. It's and of course, like, see it on the big screen, and of course with your classmates. So I was able to get feedback. People loved it. People even gave testimonials. Like it was great. And my teacher who was it seemed like he was a hard critic, but of course, those are always the ones that just really want you to succeed. And he was like, listen, he's like, I'm telling you, you have something good here. And it was just very encouraging through the whole process. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So, classes that changed me, they really, honestly, all of the classes were amazing. But, going into this 4-week program, it really taught me about the technical side of things. So we had a class on directing. So we learned shot choices and blocking and how to think about emotional beats so the film has impact, right? We had hands on camera and lighting, right? So we learned about lighting packages. We had to create scenes in the classroom as well, right? To see, okay, how will this light, okay, if you are, want to fade out the light a little bit, and I know I'm probably not using a technical term, but these are the things that we talked about in class. And that cinematographer teacher, he's amazing. And he's been there for years, but he has this checklist too that you should always go through before you're shooting a film. So I know that probably every student that comes out of New York Film Academy has that checklist, and is able to go through it before they shoot their film. And it's very helpful, just things that you can all know. Screenwriting class, that was very interesting. We had a cool screenwriting teacher. I enjoyed his class a lot. We learned about the most, I think screenwriting is always, a fun class. I just really have to take the time and write. I really respect writers, and I really respect, storytellers, the ones that, you can stay within the lines, right? You can do the structure, because film has a very specific structure, that when it's followed, you get the Devil Wears Prada, you get the, movies that everybody talks about, Sideways. Everybody tells you to read those scripts, and um, but even the Fridays, right? This is why, you know, um, that is something too that I would love like to see more multicultural stories told. We had a lot of examples, but I mean, of course, I saw the Finding Nemo's, right? They said Pixar always has a great story structure, and yeah, we saw, even how some Well, in the screenwriting class, we only really looked at films. And then in our, I believe it was our editing class where he talked about the music, we looked at some TV shows. So that was great. But I loved the screenwriting class. We wrote, short scripts, we learned what it takes to make a screen. Oh, sorry. We learned what it takes to make a scene work and realizing, you know what I mean, that we can put our own voice on the stage. So with editing, I learned how to use, and I had to use DaVinci. I had to use Final Cut for my short film. So I edited, we had to. There was nobody else that was going to do it. We couldn't like hire somebody. This was the whole point of going to the film school. So we had to edit our own films. But that was very interesting, and it was a good process because I had never really used DaVinci. I never really used Resolve. And that's not the full Adobe. I never really used like After Effects and things like that. But they had us learning on these programs, and of course, you have the computer lab that you can go to and work on your film. So they did give you time, of course, to do editing. The last week is mostly, you editing that final project, unless you're in the 8-week program. So, I mean, well, I'm talking about my experience. So in the 4-week program, the last week, primarily, we were um, I think we had a couple of classes, but we were primarily working on our film to like make sure it was good because we had to hand in, of course, the edits. Then you show your teacher, and then they give you feedback. Just trying to make sure it's as great as possible, so you can really have something, a calling card, right, to walk out with, because it is good for you to have something to be able to show people that you're serious. A film, even if it's a 2-minute film, something to show people like, hey, this is their story. This is the way they tell a story. This is the way they shoot. This is the way they can put together a team, successfully execute a project, and this is how they can do it on my film, right? So they can hire you on their film. So it's great to have that calling card, great to go to this program and come out with a film that, you can be proud of, that you can at least say, listen, I might not have a full short, but this is what I have, this is what I can do, this is what I'm capable of. I was able to direct this, I was able to write the script, I was able to edit it. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the program. We also took a little, I don't want to call it little, but we also took an acting class, and that was fun just to see what the actors, go through. I don't at the moment have desire to be an actress, but I definitely respect the craft because I think it takes a lot of energy, emotionally, physically, mentally, right, to be able to embrace and embody the character. So it was good to have that and just be able to have that perspective, and more knowledge about acting. Even though I was in drama when I was in middle school, but a very long time ago. All right. So my my first film was about um pickpocketing, just to talk about the projects a little bit more. I actually had my dad in that film, the one that's on Vimeo, and it was just like I said, it was a continual shot. So, we didn't it wasn't a shot that, it wasn't multiple shots. It was just one continual shot following my dad as he stole somebody's wallet. But it was very interesting. So that was cool. The second one was a romantic comedy. I really don't want to give it away. You have to go to my YouTube page. I'll leave the link in the description, but you have to go to my YouTube page and watch the accident, or it's also on Instagram. It's pinned to my page at Mia Hall TV. And then the last one was basically a drama, but it was a montage. And it was, like I said, the true story of how I met my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 6 years old. And when I met him, my aunt took me to meet him in the Pink Houses playground. So in the projects, in the playground. And I remember my dad said to me recently, he was like, yeah, like they hated me, but they took me when my dad came home from boot camp. He was in prison. When he came home from boot camp, he really wanted to come home and see his daughters. And so they allowed him to do that. And he was just like, I'm grateful, to your aunt, to your mom, of course, and grandma, for allowing me to come into your life, because they could have been like, no, we don't want, what I'm saying, we don't want you to be a part of our life. But he did. So anyway, that's what my last film was about. So, my classmates, like I said, they had different projects. We worked on projects in class, and then, of course, the specific projects on the weekend. It was like, you know, working on those projects and seeing like some people had more experience than others. A lot of my classmates were international. There was, I think in the last video I said that I didn't see another Black person. There was a young woman from Nigeria in my class. I think she did go back to Nigeria. So it was an international student, but she was from Nigeria. And so yeah, so I was able to work with her, but it's just inside the class. But the people that you work with on the weekends, those you're really like you guys are, doing a shoot probably at least 6 hours, but sometimes it takes longer. Like the blood, um, our classmate that had the blood, like sometimes we couldn't get it right, and then when she wanted to do the scene again, you had to clean up, of course, and then do the scene again. Like and then the blood had to splatter while she was stabbing somebody. It was a whole lot, but it was like, okay, I'm doing this now. I'm a DP, I'm a cinematographer. You had to be all the things because there only was 3 people on your crew most of the time. If you got some extra help, hooray to you. And also what was good about that is that, it's an ecosystem at the school. So we were able to tap into the resources of the school to say, hey, we're looking for actors. Hey, we're looking for, somebody else to help us out with our film. It was mostly actors, but I was able to get actors from my short film from New York Film Academy, and of course, in my films, my 2 classmates were in my first film, and then I was able to meet Justin, who's an amazing actor. What can't wait to work with him again. But I was able to meet him for my second film, The Accident, and then the other person in The Accident is also a classmate. So, so funny. But yeah. So the biggest mindset shift was that, of course, listen, I was able to connect the dots, right? Because I touched directing, camera, lighting, screenwriting, and editing. I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Now I feel like I can produce a solid short on my own. It gave me the confidence to literally that summer is when I produced my longer 8-minute short, right? And so, and that was a bigger project. It was a 2-day shoot, and it was like we probably were like we were about 10 hours a day for that shoot. And so, of course, being able to have this experience at New York Film Academy and, working on multiple films, like I said, probably 10 or more by the time you're done, you're able to learn so much. It really just builds that confidence like, okay, I can do this. And that short film was hard. I'll tell it, I'll make another video about the short film separate and apart from this, but that was a whole different process, much harder, much definitely wanted to give up, but we did it. And of course, I'm not perfect in any one area. My producing class was my favorite class because I was like, this is what I want to do. And honestly, I believe that it was in that class that I found out that producers are really the ones who win for best picture, and that's the last award that they give out at the Academy, at the Oscars, at the Academy Awards, is the film for best picture, and the producers get that award because they do a lot of the work to really, put all of the pieces together, to make a film what it is. And so, shout out to Jermaine. Jermaine Johnson. He is a producer that I met that I look forward to speaking to. And, he's the only producer that I know that was nominated for an Academy Award. He didn't win for American Fiction. I looked up that way because I have the poster and that's where I met him at the screening. But that's the goal, like to be an Oscar nominated even, of course we want him to win. I want to win, but to even just be in the room as a producer who is nominated for best film, what? Like that is Whew, amazing, 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 amazing. And he spent several years, probably almost, I think it's maybe 20 years almost in the industry. So, but yes, so not perfect, but now I understand the whole process well enough to lead a project and ask for what I need to. So, if you are a Black woman who's been quietly studying film on YouTube and wondering if you're allowed to call yourself a filmmaker, I'm building this channel for you. Comment film school who if you want a video breaking down whether I think film school is worth it, who it is for, and how I'd approach it differently now. Because I would approach it just like differently now. And I will tell you also if I would do it again. All right, so make sure you follow me at Mia Hall TV on all platforms, and also make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, leave a review, leave all the things. All right, see you next time. Peace.